Hi everybody, good afternoon. This is Lara from Pure Elliott Wave with your Monday to Friday update for Bitcoin, Ethereum and XRP. I am going to focus on the long-term picture and targets for XRP, so I will give you a quick update for Bitcoin and Ethereum. Bitcoin moved higher yesterday. It's starting to have a nice curved parabolic growth, which is really beautiful to see. I have studied cryptocurrency, particularly Bitcoin's bear market rallies, very, very carefully, and I have not seen it ever behave like this in a bear market rally. But in a bull market run, it does almost always, well no, it does actually always have parabolic growth in bullish runs. And so when we see this nice curved parabolic growth with an increase in range and push from volume, that is for this particular market almost like a stamp of this is a bullish run. Now you can see parabolic growth in bear market rallies in other markets, particularly stocks, you will see that, and indices, you will see that, but I have not seen it in cryptocurrencies. So I'm really happy to see this. This supports my analysis. Price is moving higher with push from volume and an increase in range. Look now for support at 41,100. Next resistance above 48,000. Let's have a look and see how extreme conditions are today. Really good to see a real increase in volume. The volume for yesterday's session, 2.2 billion. The previous strongest volume, 2.3 billion. So it's pretty close to 9th of November. If we can see an increase above 9th of November, I will have an even more bullish short-term outlook for Bitcoin. My long-term outlook is extremely bullish. ADX is again increasing, telling us there is an upward trend. The upward trend is technically very extreme because the ADX line is above 45 and above both DX lines. However, it is nowhere near as extreme as it will get for this market. And if you look back historically at Bitcoin's strong bullish runs, you will see ADX will reach very, very extreme really early on in those bullish runs at this time frame. We're looking at the daily time frame here. So just because it's very extreme for this market does not mean this bullish run has to end. Now, don't expect price to always move in a straight line. It can do that for several days when it's in a parabolic growth phase, but that doesn't continue forever. There will be pullbacks and consolidations along the way. RSI is again reasonably overbought, but not nearly as extreme as it can get for this market where it's in a strong bullish run. And money flow is not overbought either. Now, I am not considering this divergence between price and RSI and price and money flow because I will wait for a pivot to develop in price and RSI and money flow before I try and identify divergence. That's one of the things I've learned the hard way over the years. Wait for your pivots to develop before you try and identify is there divergence. The daily Elliott Wave count for Ethereum, I am going to consider a little pullback for a second wave correction. I'll label that Minuet Wave 2, may find support at the lower edge of this best fit channel that contains minute 1 and 2. I am going to expect that because of the bearish engulfing candlestick pattern completing for the 6th of December. Minuet 2 may not move beyond the start of 1, below 2019.91. Now, however, I am not completely convinced that I've got the labeling of Minute Wave 2 correct here. It could have been over down here, and we could have a series of first and second waves here unfolding for the early stages of a third wave, which means my invalidation point might need to move down to 1906.37. That would be my alternate labeling. Again, I'm not charting that separately. This is mostly for my own purposes. I can see it in this chart. I know you can't, but I've been doing this for so long, I can see it in this chart, and I can see that that's where my ultimate risk would lie. At the daily time frame for Ethereum, there was a little ascending triangle. The target was 2356.44. The bearish engulfing candlestick pattern today suggests that that target may not be met for the short term. Look for support for a little pullback now, 2,100. So there was strong resistance about 2,100. Price has broken through, moved up and away. Let's look now for a typical back test of support before the next move up and away. Price broke out of that consolidation with some push from volume and some further increase in volume as it moved higher. ADX is still telling us there's an upward trend. It's just now extreme again because the ADX line is just above the positive DX line, but it's a very, very long way to go before it is very extreme. RSI for Ethereum is again overbought. I'm going to wait for the 6th of December to complete before I consider a pivot may have formed, I'll look for the pivot to form, and then if there's bearish divergence after a good pivot's formed, then I'll identify it. A little bit too early because this session is incomplete. The bigger picture for XRP, someone's asked about this in comments, so do ask your questions of what you want me to cover. It gives me ideas to try and mix it up and not make myself too repetitive. Someone wanted me to look at the bigger picture for XRP, so here it is. I see for the entire price history a first wave complete here lasting 3 years. I have primary 1, 2, primary 3, primary 4, a regular barrier triangle, and primary 5 to complete cycle wave 1. Within this movement, primary 3 is 4.37 times the length of primary 1. Now, before I go any further, someone has given me some more data for XRP, which I do need to add to my analysis and see if it changes my Elliott Wave count. If it does, I will update this wave count for you. I just haven't had the time with my travel and other projects at the moment to get that done, but that's on my next list of to-do things. So if it changes this analysis, I'll go through this process again with a new wave count. For now, I'm going to see a cycle degree first wave over here lasting 3 years, followed by a huge bear market, a 96% reduction in market value for cycle wave 2 lasting 2 years. So we've got a Fibonacci 3, a Fibonacci 2, a Fibonacci 1, a Fibonacci 1, Fibonacci numbers I use for duration. So at the end of cycle 2, we have the start of cycle 3. It may only subdivide as an impulse. It must move beyond the end of 1, and it has to move far enough above the end of 1 to then allow room for cycle 4 to unfold and remain above wave 1 price territory. So there's a long way up to go if this wave count is correct. Cycle 3 will be labelled an impulse with primary 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, because within cycle wave 1, primary 3 was fairly close to 4.236, the length of primary 1, that's the Fibonacci ratio I'm going to use for XRP for targets. If primary wave 3 reaches 4.236, the length of primary 1, it would reach a target of $8.10. Let's consider, what if it lasts a Fibonacci 3 years? So we've got 1 year, 1 year, 3 years for an extended wave, should be extended in price and time. The target is a price extension, the time expectation and extension. It could end then in November 2025, possibly. For cycle wave 3, the same Fibonacci ratio. If it reaches 4.236, the length of 1, the target would be $14.04. And I'm going to consider maybe a Fibonacci 8 years, because that works with the Fibonacci 3 for primary 3. If cycle 3 lasts a Fibonacci 8 years, it could end in March 2028. So that's how I get those numbers. Within primary wave 3, if intermediate 2 were to continue lower, it may not move beyond the start of 1 below 0.2794. When intermediate 3 moves beyond the end of 1, I'll pull the invalidation point up to the end of intermediate 2. It is too early to do that. Now, this is where risk lies for the bigger picture at the monthly time frame. Let's look at the weekly chart. The end of primary 1 is this point here. Here's primary 2, subdivides beautifully as a double zigzag, W, X, Y. Y is extended. I know it's a lot longer. Some people aren't going to like that. Waves extend, what can I say? That's just what they do. The price history shows that that's how they behave, and so I think it's a bit odd to expect them to not extend. They certainly can. Now, A and C within a zigzag are most commonly equal in length, and so W and Y you'd expect also would be most commonly equal in length. They're analogous to A and C in a zigzag, but they don't always have to be. Sometimes one or the other can extend, and I think that's what's happened here. It has a beautiful fit. From this low to this high, we have a leading expanding diagonal meeting all Elliott Wave rules. I will label this intermediate 1, followed by a sharp zigzag. I'll label that intermediate 2. So for primary 3, I now see the wave count within intermediate 3, within primary 3, within cycle 3. This is an extremely bullish wave count. Target here, same as on the monthly chart. Intermediate 2 could be over here, but this is my alternate idea, and the invalidation point is down here to reflect this. Intermediate 2 could continue lower. I'll show you what I see. Seems rather obvious to me, but I don't know, maybe not so obvious to everyone else. I would label minor wave B possibly over here, and now minor wave C moving lower with a bearish engulfing candlestick pattern and a bearish upper wick here. So minor C to move below the end of A to avoid a truncation, but intermediate 2 may not move beyond the start of 1 below 0.2794. I don't really like that labelling that much though, and I think there's enough strength in this upward movement to say that it's unlikely to be a B wave. Unlikely doesn't mean it's not going to happen though. Low probability outcomes sometimes do occur, and this is the nature of probability that I think some people really need to wrap their heads around. When a low probability outcome does occur, it's never going to be what you expected as most likely, but you have to be open-minded and flexible to understand the different levels of probability and different potential outcomes, and to pivot from one outcome to the other. If your higher probability outcome is invalidated or proven to be untrue, then you switch to the next likely scenario. Kind of like making your way through a maze. If your main pathway turns out to be wrong, go and find the next pathway, if that makes sense. Hope that makes sense. Okay, daily chart. Here's the end of intermediate 2. From this low to this high, I see minor wave 1 over here, minor 2 possibly over here is an expanded flat, A, B, C, minor 3 beginning with minute 1, minute 2 another expanded flat, ended beautifully exactly where I expected. I wanted a low below this point, but not below this point. That's what we got, and now we're getting a bullish candlestick for the 6th of December. A word about proportion. This is really common behavior for a cryptocurrency. Here, within minor wave 1, you may notice that minute wave 2 is really long lasting, 22 sessions. Minute wave 4, I've got this over in one session. Now for a normal market, that would be a horrible Elliott Wave count. For a cryptocurrency, that is absolutely normal to be expected behavior. If you go and look back at long, strong, bullish runs, particularly in Bitcoin and Ethereum that have a better price history with better volume, XRP's got some decent volume now, so I'd expect its Elliott Wave structures to start to have a better look. And they certainly do seem to. But if you go back, particularly for Bitcoin and its big bullish runs, and you try and see those impulses, which are very obviously over, you will see the fourth waves are relatively brief and shallow compared to the second waves of the same degree within the impulse. That's because the fifth waves, particularly a fifth wave to end a third wave 1 degree higher, these fifth waves can be really strong, and here we've got a fifth wave to end a first wave 1 degree higher. This fifth wave is essentially a vertical upward movement for 2 days. The strength of the fifth wave pulls the fourth wave that came just before it up, forcing it to be more brief and shallow. I like to think of this in terms of energy. There's energy here in the fifth wave. It's forcing the little slowness that just came before it to just not be what it would otherwise have been without this energy to pull it up. So that gives a cryptocurrency's impulse a really strong curved 3-wave look. These markets have the most insane volatility of any charts I've ever looked at, which makes me really excited for the potential profit possibilities for long-term investing. That's why I bought a reasonable amount of this a few years ago, and it's doing really well now for me. These markets, when they have this parabolic growth, have this beautiful curve. This is what an impulse looks like for a cryptocurrency. So this makes me think that this is probably an impulse for minor wave 1 and not really necessarily a correction for minor wave B within intermediate 2. So that's another reason why I think intermediate 2 is most likely over here. Now, not certain. Again, it's all a balance of probability. It's possible intermediate 2 could continue. If intermediate 2's over there, we've got minor 1, minor 2, minor 3, and now minute 1 and 2 over here, minute 3 within minor 3, within intermediate 3, within primary 3, within cycle 3. This is an incredibly bullish wave count for XRP. Real quick, daily chart looks like it's finally managing to break through what was resistance at 62 cents. I'll now relabel as support. 6th of December's not over, but it's 6:30 in the early evening, so it's probably going to remain above there. It's doing so with a little bit of a push from volume compared to the previous downward session. I'm adding a new resistance line to on-balance volume. The last signal was bullish, which told us we were likely to get an upward breakout sooner rather than later. That is exactly what it looks like is happening today. So that signal worked really well for us. Again, I love how on-balance volume works like this. Today, I've got another resistance line. If we see a break above that resistance line, that'll be another bullish signal. It'll be weak though, because it's only got the minimum required 2 anchor points you need to draw a line. ADX is still declining. There's no clear trend at this time frame for XRP, but of all of these 3 markets, it's setting itself up for the most beautiful signal. If it can get below both DX lines, and if it can get below 15 and then turn back up, can come from low levels from below both DX lines, that'll be the strongest signal ADX can give, so I'll keep an eye on that one. That's it from me with, I'm sorry, a rather long update. Got any other ideas of what you want me to cover in my Monday to Friday videos? Put them in the comments down below and I'll get to it. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you so much for everyone who's subscribed and hitting that like button and commenting. All of your engagement helps my little channel grow, and I am very much enjoying doing this for you every day. Have a really good evening, everybody.